One. Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody, and Happy New Year. It is 2024, and it's time for our first Hoops HD report of the year. I'm Chad Sherwood, joined this evening by David Griggs over there, Joby Forza below me, and Matt Sikowski to his side, joining us again. Our friend John Titel might be jumping in as we go through the show here. He's coming back from the Creighton-Georgetown game tonight, but we got a lot to get to. Sorry, Griggs, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a little bit of an awkward schedule these last 2 weeks. Next week, we're stepping back into our normal routine with Hoops HD Report on Monday. It's normal night. Under the Radar Wednesday, bracket rundown Thursday. But this week, Chad's going to a game in the OVC tomorrow. So
I'm going somewhere tomorrow. No, I'm going somewhere Thursday. So tomorrow, yes, thanks. I can mention at the end of the show. But tonight is Tuesday, January 2nd for the Hoops HD Report. We normally do these on Mondays. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to record both the Under the Radar and a bracket rundown show. Beginning next week, it's going to become a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday format, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyhow, let's get right to it here and jump to some standings, or let's not. Griggs, why don't you fill in for a second here while I try to get the screen to work?
Okay, well, Chad's trying to get the screen to work. I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. I know I'm 364 days early, but it looks like this.
Let's get going here. I want to start things over the Big East, especially Matt. You're joining us. You are a Marquette guy, and I believe you were at Saturday's huge Marquette Creighton game, which looked like a game between two of the top teams of the nation.
Yes, no, it was a fun game, and that Marquette could hit the broadside of a bar in the first half, but then started turning up the D, I think, in the second part of the first half, and then basically kept it out through the second half. Creighton did not enjoy the pressure defense, and that basically turned the game. And then some unlikely guys, Sean Jones and Stevie Mitchell, hit some threes. Joplin threw a couple of threes in late to cinch it, and even his first dunk in college. And of course, then celebrated that and let a layup in, but that's the David Joplin experience for you. And that, but like big win for Marquette. Creighton still look like a solid team or that, and that I don't think they can be quite what they expected. And man, like I think both Creighton and Andrew Demhard would like that decision over of him leaving and then going to Gonzaga where they're not going to do anything, as we'll preview later.
Yeah, and now we've got Joby. Creighton did bounce back tonight, just before we came on here with the road win at Georgetown, whatever that might mean. But
not a whole lot.
But as far as the rest of the conference here, I think we've got, a small, maybe a smaller group of solid-looking tournament teams than we thought we would at this point in the season.
Well, I mean, I think, and I came into the season saying it would be a 4, but kind of the haves and have-nots situation, and that still could arise. We know that UConn and Marquette are going to be competing for 1 and 2s. Villanova, as long as they're not playing some team from the Big Five, they're going to be okay.
Any team for the Big Five.
but the team that's been surprising, we've talked about Creighton, not quite what we thought. Creighton's had some stub your toe moments, but Providence has been a very big surprise in my book, and solidly a tournament team. I think you will still be looking at half the conference in the tournament, which is more than I actually suspected. And that looks really good when you consider UConn and Marquette are easily in the protected seed range and probably in the 1-2 line discussion.
Yep. Providence still without a true road win, but in this conference, the way it's playing out, you go to Georgetown, you go to DePaul, you go to Xavier even, that's probably at least 3, which should be enough. I agree with you that they do look like a tournament team. There is another team I kind of want to talk about. And it's the same one that I keep bringing up that, they've shown signs that they can be, and it's this Butler team here. Now, this Butler profile is not a tournament profile, but the question I have and continue to ask is, are they good enough to get the wins they need to make it a tournament profile? This is a team that went into Providence, who we just got done praising, lost in overtime, really should have won the game in regulation, played Florida Atlantic really tough. They're at the Johnnies tonight. I don't, but again, eventually you got to get the wins. I'm still betting that Butler is good enough to get the wins they need to make this a tournament profile, even though right now it is not. To be honest, Joby, I'll be surprised if we select them tomorrow. I know we're using your J&G. Where are they in that? I can't.
They aren't far out.
57.
So they're reasonably close. Yeah, that sounds.
No, they're
right.
5. They're 5 out. That's not ridiculous. That they're only 5 out.
Yeah.
Like you said, if they can compile the wins, they got UConn at home in 2 days. In 2 games. They win that at UConn or the UConn at home. If they pull that off, they're not just in the field; they are like beyond the bubble in the field for the time being.
Well, and they got the game at St. John's is going on right now as we record this. It's very early there.
Yeah.
Actually, it's getting towards halftime actually, but they're in that game at the moment.
Right, they are
trailing.
And Johnny's been pretty good this year. So
well, St. John's. When I say Butler's the 5th team out, St. John's is the 4th team.
Yeah,
so that's a good battle for that's a good win by whoever gets it, not a bad loss by whoever gets it.
Matt, I've got the upcoming schedule here. I think we've got a couple interesting games this weekend too, with the Providence Creighton game, and your Marquette team has a road test of a team that did beat UConn.
Yeah, that's why Providence Creighton. I'm interested to see because that's another one with Providence's athleticism and perimeter pressure they can cause. I don't know. Creighton doesn't like that, so even though that is in Omaha, if that's a place if you're looking for Providence to get a big one, I think Marquette and UConn should handle them. Even though I know it's a rival, the Providence-UConn rivalry, but that's a place there. Yeah, we're conceding Hall. It could be a little bit of a trap game, but that UConn game is still a huge outlier performance out of their season on the whole, to where like it's one of those first conference road game. UConn Klingon got hurt during the game. It was fairly close when he went down, and that's whether they still might have lost anyway. But like, and that's what puts if Marquette's going to be your 1 or even 2 seed, that's the type of game they need to win.
Well, Matt, we start with the Big East because you're a Big East guy. Joby, I think since you're here, also we go to your favorite conference. Of course, I'm talking the Mountain West, which I wanted to skip. I was going to start the show here tonight, but with Matt on, we decided to go to the Big East. But I really did want to feature the Mountain West early in the show tonight because of what happened up at Gonzaga on Friday night, where San Diego State went in there and Greek. They just look so good at Gonzaga, and
they did. Well, they
and
are
maybe
good.
we're going to talk about Gonzaga's problems in a few minutes when we get to the West Coast. But what about this San Diego State team and this, at the moment now?
Well, I mean, they are good. You're pulling up the profile. They also had the win against St. Mary's, the win against Washington. I think that's aging well. We'll get to Washington in a little bit. Another team that might not have a tournament profile, but has perhaps shown that they are good enough to get the wins they need to, and they'll have the chances. But their only losses, the loss at Grand Canyon is not a bad loss at all. I don't think Grand Canyon's going to lose at home. I think that it's a place that I think Grand Canyon's a team that's good enough to beat legit top 25 teams at home. They're not a top 25 team themselves, but on their home court, a top 40 team can beat a top 25 team, and BYU probably won't lose at home either. So, I mean, no real shame in either of those losses. And
I mean, know that BYU now plays in the Big 12.
Yeah.
BYU is going to lose some home games. They're not beating Colorado. I'm sorry. They're not beating Kansas and Texas and
you didn't
Baylor and Houston.
You didn't
all
let
at
me
home.
finish my thought. I'm like, BYU wouldn't lose at home if they didn't play in the Big 12. The point I was trying to make. Okay. They were the national runners-up. Is it any surprise that they're good again?
Joby, I saw a stat early today about the Mountain West, and I think I emailed it around early, but the top 6 teams in this conference are undefeated against Quad 3 and Quad 4. I know you should be, but the fact that all 6 of them did that and got through non-conference play without an ugly loss, doesn't that kind of speak well for the Mountain West in terms of getting a pile of bids?
They did their job. They did their job on the gaming of the system stuff, which is actually really good. The problem the Mountain West,
gave the system but you still got to win the games. And
you got to win the games.
40-0.
The difference though between this year's Mountain West and last year's is actually the second half of the conference. This happened last year. New Mexico, Colorado State, Boise, UNLV last year. They were all floating in the above 70 range, and they have 6 teams doing that in the net right now that are quad 1 wins if you win at their place, and only quad 2 and quad 2 if you beat them, at your place. That's great. That's going to be helpful. However,
they got 5 in the top 4.
Last year, there were more. You didn't have a single team above 150 practically, except for I think Wyoming. And so you this year's the bottom half of the conference. Now that they need to keep that, they don't need to, but in order to maintain 5 bids or whatever you want to throw out there, they need to make sure they keep clean among the bottom, so to speak, and pick off a Colorado State, one another on the road here and there in order to clinch it. Is this a multiple bid league? Of course it is, but I don't think it's multiple white jerseys, if it were.
I just think that the league I don't think it's smoke and mirrors this year. I'm not saying that it's on par with the Big East or like the Big Ten, but there are multiple, probably 4 or 5 legit top 40 teams in this league. And I think that they've been proving it. I know Colorado State's the only one in the rankings, but I think Utah State's good. I think Nevada is good. I mean, and San Diego State, who we just got done talking about, these are all teams that can not just get inside the bubble, but get past the round of 64. And it wouldn't shock me. I don't think I'm not going to predict 4 teams into the second weekend, but I wouldn't be surprised to see more than one. This is a really tough league this year.
Well, Matt, and I think the one problem I see when I look at this league is some of these strength of schedules. And he mentioned like smoke and mirrors, but I think I'd argue that Utah State may be the one team that is smoke and mirrors in this conference.
Yeah, they're doing amazingly well given that. And I'm not like, I wouldn't even call them out for a bad schedule because they returned no one on their roster. Like, I'm sure if you put some two serum and Danny Sprinkle, he's like, there's no way I'm starting 13-1 even against that schedule. So like that, I'm not going to put too much blame. Now I will say it's not going to help their at-large case if they're right at the cut line, but that's not one like they had no expectations going in. Like you should schedule like that because hey, you don't want to do it to Paul and like you schedule above your depth and therefore you're going to win 5 games this year.
Well, do you think this
is the type of team that could lose at Wyoming on a
yeah, they do. I'm not as sold on Utah State. I try, but Colorado State, San Diego State, yeah, those are good.
And I agree. Nevada's good, Griggs. Believe it or not.
Nevada, yeah.
But then you look at these. Well, I continue the strength of schedule argument. New Mexico sitting there with a 320 strength of schedule, and Nevada, I'll pull them up on the right here. They're sitting there with a 253 strength of schedule. Although they have a couple things at the top of their resume that New Mexico and Utah State don't have. So
yeah,
with the TCU and the Washington road win.
And New Mexico, they were supposed to be good. They don't have that excuse at Utah State.
Right. And they did lose at St. Mary's. And this was a team that was left out last year largely because of their strength of schedule. So you kind of do have to call them out too. For not doing it when it was the stated reason. And why won't New Mexico get out there and play anybody? It's not like they don't have the opportunities or people are going to avoid them.
Oh yeah, they're someone they'd be able to. I wouldn't buy that they can't get games excuse. They're Mountain West, big enough conference like that. Like, if you ask someone whatever like that had an open game late in the scheduling part of it, say like March, April, they would have given them a game.
Yeah.
Or go to a tournament that has those games because they might actually be able to be invited.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say
anything if Vegas has like 20 tournaments over the holidays, it's not a far trip.
I will say in future years with the gazillion teams being in the power conferences, they'll be a little easier for them in the future. But yeah.
Interesting game coming up later this evening. By the time most of you are watching this, it'll be final. It's not going to start for another hour here as we're recording this. New Mexico at Colorado State. As we get right into conference play, Utah State already picked up a win tonight. And the rest of the slate there. And it's actually, we've got a lot of interesting games here, including coming up this week, Colorado State at Utah State.
That's a big one, yeah.
We've got Colorado State, then at Boise State. So big week for Colorado State with these 3 games, actually.
Yeah.
The circle. But let me, Joey, judge up over to the real conference for you, the ACC, as opposed to the Mountain West, where I don't know that you really want to be discussing this conference, but I got to ask you, what the hell happened to Virginia on Saturday?
I just an absolute dismantling. Griggs, I have a feeling that Virginia is going to be David Griggs' least favorite team this year because they got road problems. If you can't beat Notre Dame on the road, you got road problems. But that's why Creighton did so well tonight. Georgetown, it's very tough to beat Catholic schools at their place. So it's it's just the way it is. So I give Creighton all the compliments in the world. But Virginia went on the break and they were hitting threes like they were going out. Isaac McNeely was number 2 in the country on both threes made and percentage. Think about that for a second. That's insane. Those stats don't exist anymore because he's gone cold. As shooters sometimes get cold, and so as such, Groves has gotten cold, and so when you don't have the 3 hitting, Virginia's inside weakness starts to take over. The disappointing thing against Notre Dame was the defense, which has, even when they haven't played well, like even Memphis, the defense still played pretty well against Memphis. That was not a solid defensive performance, especially in the first half against the Irish. There should be, despite Virginia still being at this point in time a tournament team right now, the second half of the term, but they are clearly a tournament team right now. If they give more performances like they did against Notre Dame, that will change.
I just kind of want to throw this out there. This was one of 3 games, and we'll get to the other 2, of course, that were just jaw-dropping, made no sense. Not just the score of the game, or not just the result of the game, but the score. For them to go there and get boat raced, the one thing that you might want to ask, should they drink less before going out and taking the floor when they go on the road? I mean, Virginia just looked drunk in this game.
Yeah, it was just an awful start. It started off a 20-point deficit.
Yeah.
Virginia cut it to 10 at one point, and you're thinking, okay, maybe. And then, blam, it's 30. It was a crazy game. And I think you're going to the next game you'll hit, the Hokies were on the verge of looking like a tournament team. And there's your other score that just Wake's decent team. They're NIT. They're not a tournament team. They're NIT level team. But come on, man. At home, I mean, at home, you're or not at home, but I'm losing by 23 to Wake. That just shouldn't happen. So the Virginia schools generally did not have a good week.
Yeah, Virginia Tech with the loss here, and Florida State, who I thought we kind of liked with that early win in November over Colorado, had completely fallen off the face of the planet with a home loss to Lipscomb in their last non-conference game. So it was not a good week for these teams that we're giving a little bit of love to in the bubble. But Matt, let me throw it back to you here. Is there anybody that you saw anything good from out of the ACC this week?
Like happened tonight, but Carolina won at Pitt, which I think for the ACC's case, if you want to have a protected seed or two, that's the type of win you want your top schools having.
And our good friend John Titel has joined us. John, welcome. We actually did start the show off in the Big East, so but let me jump back to the Big East for 2 seconds since you're jumping in here, because I knew you just came from the Crane Georgetown game. So any thoughts on that game as you jump into the show, and then we'll go back into the ACC again.
Sadly, I don't know if that game is worth 2 seconds of my time, but I'll give it a shot. To be honest, Creighton is a top 25 team. Georgetown is not, and they were playing without their leading scorer, Jaden Epps, who has a right ankle injury in his day-to-day. They hung around. I think they were down 4 at halftime, thanks to 11 Creighton turnovers. And then Creighton scored almost 50 in the second half. Trey Alexander with a season-high 25, and it was not that close. So the upcoming Georgetown-DePaul game could be I don't know if I can stomach myself to even go, Chad.
I'm not telling you got to go, that's for certain. Let's jump back over to the ACC as I'll pull up the upcoming schedule. Syracuse at Duke is going on as we record this. But Briggs, I like this Clemson-Miami game tomorrow night. I think that's one of the more interesting games this week.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And is there anything that impressed me? Maybe not this past week because they were sort of like in holiday mode, but I think Clemson's one of the bigger surprises, not just in the conference, but maybe in all of college basketball. I think that we thought they were a tournament team, or that they might be. I don't think that we were expecting them to look like a protected seed, but right now, to date, they've looked as good as anyone in the league, and they might look the best out of the whole league. Probably the best team that Brad Brownell's held since he's gotten there. I'm glad they gave him another year, and I bet they are too.
And then Miami after this game tomorrow night has to go to Wake this weekend. And Joby, now that Wake is 2-0, they picked up a road win tonight at BC. Is it time to like pay a little bit of attention to the Demon Deacons, especially with this interesting game on Saturday?
ACC this year has about, it's like the Big East and has about 4 or 5 tournament teams. But the interesting thing about the ACC is they have a ton of, and I'll call them NIT teams. I mean, tons of them. I mean, Syracuse, Pitt, Boston College, and Wake is NC State and Wake. If the NIT were held today, all 5 would be there. Now, that's not saying, oh, that's makes the conference so good, but it shows depth on the net. Look at those nets, and so you're going to have a lot of teams in that top 75. And, a team like Syracuse, probably because of who they're playing, as long as they play well, they'll probably climb into the top 75. So you're looking at good quality wins, and in all honesty, frustrating wins, because you could see a team like a Miami. Okay, let's say Miami doesn't beat Clemson. Miami goes out and then they beat Wake Forest and they beat NC State and they beat, and you go, where's the tournament wins, Miami? But they'll still look good because they'll have a bunch of tier 1 and high tier 2 wins. So,
Let's jump over to the Big 12 conference here. As it comes up,
that BYU now plays in.
the conference that BYU does play in, they are after that 12-1 start, coming off of the win over Wyoming this week. But Titel, I want to ask you, because I'm sure you watched a little bit of your Penn Quakers take on Houston and get plowed over the weekend. But this Houston team, now number 1 in the net, number 1 in the JMG, number 1 in the Cape Ken Palm, number 1 in the BPI, undefeated. Is this the best team in the nation, despite what the voters think?
Yes, longest active win streak in the nation, plus arguably, or maybe inarguably, the best defense in the nation, and wins over Utah and Dayton and Xavier and A&M. It's hard to argue otherwise. Easy cupcake with West Virginia at home Saturday, and then the gauntlet starts with every single game left on their schedule in the top 100, thanks to a tough conference. I think we're getting to the point where we need to discuss Kelvin Sampson as a Hall of Famer, maybe, and this team as a legit national champion contestant, maybe. And when will they lose? Maybe at BYU on January 23rd, because BYU is a very tough place to play.
I will just take one little issue here on the West Virginia as a cupcake. They took Ohio State to overtime, and now that they have Raekwon Battle eligible and they got these guys eligible, I don't think West Virginia is the cupcake they were 3 weeks ago.
That's fair.
But all that said, I don't expect West Virginia to go to Houston and win the game either. So that's sorry, Griggs, you had a comment on somebody else in the conference?
Who do we want to go to? I was just going to echo what he was saying about Houston. Okay. I don't think they're number 1 in the nation. Maybe not. Well, probably not in the nation or the conference. But holy crap, are they good?
Yeah, and as you see, the conference did just finish up all its non-conference play, so I think it's better to take a look at the upcoming schedule. Actually, a few more non-conference games going on. Baylor is currently clobbering Cornell, and K-State is probably pounding. Actually, Chicago State's in it with K-State in the second half, so we'll keep an eye on that one as we go through here. But not a good sign for this K-State team. But
no, it is not.
But Chad, 11 of the 14 are tier 1 top 75. 10 of the 14 are top 50. That's just, you lose a game, it's not a big deal when you lose to a top 50 team. I mean, you can go, this has the formula, as long as you don't get tripped up against West Virginia and Oklahoma State, and to a lesser extent K-State. As long you can afford to be like 2 or 4 games under 500 and still get a bid, because guess what? To get to 2 or 4 games under 500, you've collected a lot of good wins on top of having very few bad losses.
And we've seen it before out of this conference.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, I'll tell you the other team that I think is interesting here. This is Houston's first conference road game coming up over the weekend. This is Iowa State team. Although they're not in the top 25 polls, the metrics love this team. And I know you're a big fan of some of these metrics. I love them.
I actually saw a lot of the Iowa game. They were really impressive in that blowing Iowa off the court. It's an okay team at that probably NIT-ish level. That's one. I think what is, compared to past years, they're better offensively. And that I think Lipsy took a huge jump his freshman sophomore year. And the kid from Wisconsin, I'm gonna probably butcher his name, but Milana, with an M, and that, but a great like 3-4 hybrid shooter, and that and a little deceptively athletic, which is the white guy tag deceptively athletic, but yeah, his skill that I think complementing the great defense they still play, and that's why I think Iowa State might be a couple of notches better this year than even the last couple of teams that did some damage. I know the team 2 years ago went to the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
How about
that's
that?
that's Milan Momslovic. Is my Titel? Am I pronounce that right? You seem to be good at some
I
of these
believe it's
names.
Milan Momcilovic, which is funny only
Momcilovic.
because like
Okay.
Omaha Billy was supposed to be the great freshman guy, and instead it's the other guy.
Yeah, and how about that road record? Let's look at what this team talk about road kill, undefeated on the road.
Undefeated. I mean, not everybody can win it to Paul.
DePaul sure as hell can.
Griggs, West Virginia's undefeated on the road too. If you looked up at them, yeah.
I'm gonna circle every single game on this Big 12 schedule like we would probably do all season because I don't know that there's a single game, maybe that UCF Kansas State game. Other than that, I don't think there's a single game on there that's not a game that you should be paying attention to this week. Just when you look at how strong this conference is, top to bottom. But let's keep things rolling here and jump over to the SEC. Where again another conference we're finishing up non-conference play, and another conference where we still see one of only 3 undefeated teams in the nation, and that's this Ole Miss team. And Joby, are you a believer in this Ole Miss team?
Well, yeah, I will let
No.
Matt say amen
Okay, Matt.
to this. I usually don't get caught up in like the Kim Bomb and the predictive metrics, but God, those are awful. I mean, for a team that's undefeated. I mean,
Well, okay. Yeah,
it's because you also turn to SOS of 331. I mean,
pull up this profile, Chad.
you know, they do, they have gotten a few wins of note. Central Florida is actually a good win.
I think that Central Florida lost.
But Memphis
is going to fall. It's going to fall seriously.
Memphis is the big one. I mean, let's be honest. Memphis is awesome. That Memphis's net doesn't belie how good this team is. Memphis is a protected seed right now with their resume, no questions asked. And so 40's silly. That's why the Nets can be kind of off. But Ole Miss, if they perform in the SEC, if they get to 500 in the SEC without major stubbing of toes, they're going to be in the thick of it. However, I don't think they will. I think they will take their losses. They're the type of team who I think, they could lose at home to Florida, who's fighting for a spot in the tournament right now.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt. Yeah,
I was going to say, it's like I looked at the Ole Miss metrics even a little deeper just because I know sometimes if you come in with no expectations and that there's still, especially in KenPom, a little bit of the preseason bias baked in, but they started KenPom in 82 and they're 79 now. So they've played to par to KenPom's expectations. It's just instead of what probably should be like a 10-3, 9-4 record, it's 13-0.
Yeah, and they've got their first conference game coming up this weekend, Titel, and they're at Tennessee. Well, I don't expect them to win Titel, but this Tennessee team is a good team. Are they not?
Yes. When your 3 losses are to Tier 1A, all by single digits, and you already have a couple scalps from the Big Ten on the left there, it's hard to say this, but I think an undefeated team is going to lose by double digits for their first loss of the season.
Well, okay, something that I know that Tier 4, it's easy to overlook, but in this case, you have to look at it. Sweating out Detroit Mercy, sweating out Cal. I think they ended up winning by 10, but it was a close game. That right there is an indicator that maybe this is not a top 25 team.
Mercy is dead last. Yeah. They are the Centenary Award winner right now.
Sweating out Sam Houston, who's normally good, but isn't this year. Yeah, this is, again, Tier 4 is very easy to overlook, especially when you do what we do. At least I catch myself doing this. I don't go through Tier 4 with a fine-tooth comb. But if you do that in this case, there are indicators there that this Ole Miss team, am I a believer? No. I mean, I think they're better than what I thought they were, but I don't think they're a tournament team.
Well, how about a team that is a good team? Uh, well, for example, we've got this Kentucky team here. They've
Yes,
got an interesting game at Florida coming up this weekend.
real big.
Sorry, Greg, you were going to.
Well, yeah, no, I like this Kentucky team a lot. I think that what we often see out of Kentucky is what we're seeing this year, to where they're not as good in November and December as what people expect, especially their own fans. Then they go into the Christmas holiday when there's no classes and no practice restrictions, and then they get through that, and then they're playing like a top 10 well-oiled machine. And I think we've seen cases of that. I think they go to Florida, who's also really good, and get the win. I think this Kentucky team is very good. And they're going to be, I think they're going to end the season better than they are now.
And those are the two really interesting these games this week, in the Ole Miss Tennessee and the Kentucky Florida game. There's a few others. Mississippi
Auburn,
State,
Arkansas has got to get their motors started.
they do, and Mississippi State, South Carolina, Joby, just a couple, especially the
Those
South
are two
Carolina team
tournament
that.
teams right now. Right
Go
now,
ahead.
both those teams are in the tournament. Do I think they are? Are they in March? We'll see. But their profiles right now, this is a very people aren't paying attention to that game, but they probably should, because it is 12-1 versus 11-2, and with better, I would dare say both of them have better overall resumes, beside taking away the undefeated mark, than the Ole Miss team we discussed.
Let's jump over to the Big Ten Conference, which saw get back into conference play tonight already, with Wisconsin with a tough home win over Iowa, and Purdue picked up an fairly easy road win at Maryland this evening already. I believe there's another game, the Northwestern game against somebody's going on right now.
It's
they're
Illinois.
playing Illinois.
In
right
Illinois,
now.
the last I checked, Illinois was pretty far ahead.
Okay. But first of all, Titel, is it time to write off this Michigan team? Now they've dropped under 500 and lost at home to McNeese.
I mean, they're a football school. I think we can all agree on that. But yes, it's almost inexcusable. Although, as you can see, McNeese is not even tier 4, tier 3. They're tier 2. They're very good this year, obviously. Michigan has not cupcakes ahead, but 3 teams outside the top 75. And so I think those are all winnable, frankly. But after that, it is a tough road to hoe. So I do not think this team will even sniff the NIT, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. Yeah. Matt, on the other hand, Purdue, and we know they lost to Northwestern earlier this year, but they looked really good on the road tonight at Maryland.
Yeah, that was intriguing to see. What is the Northwestern game? Just a road blip? Hey, your first road game of the year. Plus, that place just seems to be a house of horrors for them. But yeah, it looks like that turned out to be. Because Northwestern's a little better than Maryland, but it's not a huge gulf of quality there. And they went to Maryland and comfortably won. So I think this is a case. I think it's a side Purdue should go 17-3, 18-2. I think in the Big Ten this year, especially because it's not as I think it's strong at the top, or even there's not great depth outside of the top 8 or 9. So I don't see a ton of losses in Purdue in Big Ten play. I think they have their one, and you can kind of definitely on one hand, and I think with a couple fingers left over, how many more they get.
Team that's going in the right direction, Joby. How about Michigan State? Now won 4 in a row, including that nice win over Indiana State in the Magic Johnson Larry Bird rematch game.
This was said a couple of weeks ago on this show, and they've done nothing to disprove over the last few weeks since it was said. Michigan State reminds you of that typical team, and sometimes it is Michigan State, that is preseason. Everybody's saying, "Oh, top 10, top 5, Final 4," and then they just disappoint for the first part of the year. Kentucky often is that team, and then you realize, oh, they're good after all. What we thought preseason, there was some there. I don't know if Michigan State is a Final 4 contender, but they're most certainly they are in the tournament with what they've done recently. They are now back in the tournament field, and they are clearly, with the trajectory they have, looking to just improve up the seed line. Do not be surprised if by March that we are talking a protected seed about this team. That's, they have the pieces. The pieces are finally playing together, and it's Tom Izzo's doing what Tom Izzo does.
And Matt, I know you're kind of in the Illinois area, at least. I want to mention this Illinois team, which surprisingly is taking it to Northwestern as we record this, especially with the news that Terrence Shannon has been suspended for for criminal charges that just Sounds like it's absolutely awful what he's accused of doing if he in fact did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still may torpedo that season. And well, it definitely, if nothing else, it limits their upside come March where maybe the Big Ten is weak enough this year to where maybe, hey, they still go like 14-6, get a pretty good season because their resume was excellent before this news. And I think they were my pick to finish second behind Purdue before this news hit. Now I actually probably would go the other team to discuss Michigan State. But that's what, like they said, I think they'll still be a tournament team, especially the Big Ten. I think they have enough overall other quality on the roster. Coleman, Hawkins, and that Ty Rogers taking a nice step up year two, and that Marcus Damask, the SIU transfer. So I think they have enough overall quality to make up for it to be, like I said, in the Big Ten. But that might become March, which again, similar story for Illinois, where they come into March as the high seed and don't go far. It might be that case this year where hey, they're like a 3, 4, 5 seed and maybe upset first or second round because your best player got himself in trouble and you had to suspend him the second half of the season.
Right. And here they are. They're at Purdue on Friday, which would be a lot more of a test to see exactly if this team has anything at all without Shannon than tonight's home game, at least. Actually, that's a huge game there. Clearly, the game to circle up coming this week. Other than Monday night, Titel, we've got Michigan and Washington. It's a different sport, though.
My question is, anybody going to be at the Penn State-Michigan game the night before?
Penn State-Michigan game, that game is actually going to be played in the Palestra in Philadelphia. That's going to be a neutral court game. And I believe that is Penn State's home game. So that they moved over into Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think I didn't know that they had done this, but I think they play one home game in the Palestra every year. So interesting that this is the one they chose. Some people will probably be there. Well, Michigan, you kind of hate that this Penn State-Michigan game is going to take so much away from the football game.
I'll tell you another game that may be a little bit interesting here. What about this Nebraska-Wisconsin game on Saturday? Just because this Nebraska team has had a little life, haven't they?
A little, but are you asking? Well, pull them up. I think that how many of those wins? Yeah, 9 of the 11 at home. The vast majority home bye games. They do have the win against Michigan State. I really like that win at K-State. I don't know if I'm a believer yet, and I still think. Imagine where they would be had they not run off Tim Miles.
Okay, that's it. I'm sorry I went there, everybody. I really am, but I think we just got to move over to the Pac-12 conference here, where. Yeah, Titel, I know you don't want to be talking Pac-12 hoops, but unfortunately, I gotta ask you, what the heck? Again, this is another
one of the three. This was one of the three.
Arizona. I mean, it looked like they completely no-showed Stanford. I think Stanford hit what, about 303 pointers in that game too.
A little less, but 16 out of 25, 64%, which is good enough to win almost any game. I was talking to somebody about this today online. So if you look at the Arizona schedule, which you don't have to, I kind of have it memorized, sadly. So the 3 losses, we scored 84, 95, and 82, which is to say the offense is fine. And all 3 of those were not in the state of Arizona, which means we're fine in terms of it doesn't hurt as much to lose away from home. And the problem is the defense, obviously. When you allow 92 points or more a game, we're 0-3. When we don't, we're 10-0. So as long as we can keep teams under 92, I really like our chances this year.
I'll tell you what, you're under. You keep teams under 82 because every win, it's just so strange. Matt, you're a big metrics guy. Let me ask you about this. You see a team with the number 7 defense in the nation that has 3 games where they gave up 92, 96, 100 points.
Yeah, I think it's one part of the pace. I think those are all like well above 70 possession games, so it doesn't hurt the numbers as much. That said, the Stanford one giving up 100 to a team that I'm sure Stanford's offense was not in the top 100 or 150 going into that game. That regardless of the pace of that game, you would have thought, hey, they would have kept Stanford to a point per possession or under, and that was clearly well above a point per possession given that they scored 100.
Joby, can I ask you what happened? What's going wrong with 2 schools at the same time? What's going wrong in Southern California? Because that's the big. This was supposed to be both tournament teams this year. Look at these profiles.
I mean, it's awful. And USC losing to Oregon State, who's they're back to being Oregon State. Forget
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I don't. USC is a bunch of talented parts that are just parts, not a team. It's easy to see what's wrong with USC. And who knows, if the parts start playing, I give them, maybe some chance at redemption. Watch out, Titel.
By winning the Pac-12 tournament, because
no, but this is the sort of team that could randomly beat Arizona on a given day. They put it together for a day. UCLA, I don't understand. I mean, UCLA, I thought was coming into this year was just going to be a solid tournament team. I'm just scratching my head at this one. I mean, it's I can't explain UCLA. To be very honest, if someone has, and the problem UCLA has, because I think they're more consistent than USC. The problem UCLA has is I don't think they're the team that beats Arizona on a random day. And there aren't enough scalps. Utah's turned into a scalp. Colorado's turned into a scalp, I think. But there aren't enough tournament teams to get UCLA after so many missed opportunities out of conference. They had a strong out-of-conference schedule. Hell, they play like 5 teams there in the tournament right now as we speak, 5 or 6. But because they missed their opportunities, I don't think the Pac-12 gives them the opportunities they need to get in the tournament. They'll finish with a winning record, I think, at the end of the day in the Pac-12, but it's not going to be enough.
Yeah,
NIT bound. It's one of these other NIT type schools.
Yeah, Matt, you look at this conference. Colorado and Utah both played well, along with Arizona. I'm not sure there's anything else left in here that's done anything to impress me enough. I'm a couple mini scouts for like Washington, but not enough.
What I think I'm looking at, especially if they could start getting healthy, Oregon's holding enough water right now to, especially like if they play well into February, they put up a decent record, they might get a little credit to where, like, especially like they're like 21-10, but then they finish strong in February once they get some guys back here. If they
I'd like to see some wins in the top 2 tiers, and there's very limited chances, and including 4 of their next 5 games are the ones they got to win, aren't they? With those 4 road games.
I think that this is a really important stretch. For starters, it's the rivalry. It's the Washington game anyway. Probably one of their biggest rivals. But the Washington Wazoo, those are 2 teams that have played really well at home. I think we're gonna. I mean, it's sort of put up or shut up.
But you follow that up right afterwards after a Cal home game with the Colorado Utah road trip. It's right in front of them if they want to make the move.
If they can win 3 of the next 5, I'm going to feel a lot better about them than I do right now.
You're right, Joey. It has to start now. It's not something they can wait till February to get hot on, unless they want to win the Pac-12 tournament.
How many games they win of those 4, of those 4 games, how many they win will depend if they need an Arizona win or not. That's really what the calculation is. If they go 1-3, they're going to have to beat Arizona. If they go 2-2 in that, then you know what? Then take care of business. Don't lose to Cal. That sort of thing. Maybe they have a shot.
And not with us tonight, Rocco. But what about these? Are not easy games, because you could say the same about Washington. It's a team that is better than their record. They went on a really brutal road trip to Utah, Colorado, lost both games, but were competitive in both. And are they good enough? That Oregon-Washington game is a massively important, pivotal game for both teams, and it's a rivalry game. That is a great game.
Right, and don't forget we've got Colorado and Utah going to Arizona and Arizona State this week. So there's a lot of good action, Pac-12 action, believe it or not, this week. Let's keep things rolling to the 3rd inexplicable game, and this may be the most inexplicable one of them all. Florida Atlantic. I don't get it. They go to Florida Gulf Coast. This is a Florida Gulf Coast game. That the game before this, they played non-D1 Florida Memorial and needed overtime to win the game. And then FAU goes in, and I get it. There's going to be more Gulf Coast fans at the Florida Atlantic game there are at the Florida Memorial game. But where do you want to go? Matt, do you want to discuss this FAU team? How the heck do you lose that game and struggle with East Carolina at home tonight after that?
Well, that's the thing is now you also had the Bryant home loss to where I was, especially with the other good work they did since that Bright game, I was basically willing to kind of overlook that to where, hey, that's a bad day. Now you add Gulf Coast to it, that's 2 very bad days. And now that's an anchor on your profile to where you just do what they're supposed to do those games. That's like a 2 or 3 seed. Now, like a 6 maybe? And that's so like
I mean,
yeah,
this is one of the stranger profiles we're going to be looking at all season now. Joby, 2 tier 4 losses and all those great wins at the neutral, not road, but neutral
Arizona,
court wins.
you know, just like with the Pac-12 schools, Florida Atlantic got their Arizona win. You know, they got, which boosts them. I think they're still, Matt, fighting for, because of that, along with A&M, along with Virginia Tech, along with the Butler team that we all liked. Assuming Butler does perform to the level we think that, like Griggs thinks they can. Florida Atlantic still can fight and find their way to a 4 seed. I truly do. But you know what? You can't continue to do this. If you continue to do this, you can slide quickly. You can slide from you're fighting for a protected seed to fighting for a spot in the tournament. If you rack up like 3 more of those, it's like, okay, well, Arizona was a fluke.
Yeah. And
at some point, then you start looking the other, well, that was a fluke. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
This is gonna be strange,
Go back to the profile, Chad, and I'm going to state the obvious here. And it's like when Arizona hits a slide, or when Marquette hits a slide, you're sliding against top 50 teams usually. If FAU hits a slide, they're sliding against teams that are not going to be in the NIT. The margin for error is not there. And they've already
at least for this stretch all the way through the middle of February.
I mean,
the end
really,
of the schedule,
if they
the 2
don't
Memphis
win
games of the SMU
if
game.
they lose any of them, we're going to be like, well, now they've got 3.
I got that Memphis profile on the left. Titel, I could put SMU up on the left here. They haven't done anything good, but they haven't done anything bad. Is this a team that may have a shot at doing something? What's in there with a 47 net? Not that far away from maybe doing something, especially with the road games at FAU and at Memphis still ahead this season.
Yes, but I think that they'll need to win some of those Memphis and FAU games. The J&G does not love them. And Joby, I assume that if they lose to Memphis and FAU and win everything else, they're still not making the tournament, correct?
I would say that that's accurate. I mean, they don't have a win. They would not have a single win against a tournament team. Their profile would look like that Davidson profile from a few years ago that we debated. And Davidson did not make the tournament that year. So
here's the upcoming schedule. SMU at Memphis on Sunday. So if we're going to, say, hey, they got to do something, here's their chance coming up this weekend.
It is. Yeah.
They've got to play Memphis is at Tulsa on Thursday. Before that, SMU is hosting Charlotte tonight. I hope they're winning. After I just they are up at halftime.
Yeah.
after I just tried to hype them up, they'd probably be down 20 right now at home, right? Matt, we talked about San Diego State earlier with their win at Gonzaga, but let's talk a little bit about the Zags team. Because their name is Gonzaga, they are still in the top 25 polls. Is this even a tournament profile really right now? And I pulled them up on the left.
It looks worse than I thought. Oh,
yeah. Maybe dated, maybe. Like that's what the predictive metrics still like them, and that's I guess they've beaten their bad teams by enough to where they've kept decent part of there. But man, like they just haven't accomplished much yet, and there's not many opportunities this year with St. Mary's being a disappointment in that. I'm looking here. Okay, they do get at USF, so that helps toward that. That's another
Kentucky.
And the Kentucky.
But I just think that's a talent golf. And I'm with you guys in Kentucky. By that time, I think Kentucky's going to basically be a juggernaut. So unless they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is an off day from SEC play, we're going to take the day off. Kentucky beats them handily.
I think USF's
teams play the potential.
I think USF's net's going to drop with USF's schedule. It's just natural. Unless USF is beating Pacific by 30, then San Diego by 30, then Portland by 30, then it just if they just beat like you would, you won by 5. Congratulations. You win by 5, your net's going to take a hit by 5.
I'll tell you the one thing that could really help for Gonzaga, as we record this, we're at halftime. Syracuse only down 2 at Duke. If Syracuse wins this game, that changes the Gonzaga profile a ton because that probably puts that Syracuse win into quad one suddenly.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like they need the LA Pac-12 schools to start playing to their potential to help their profile.
Yeah, that
Well-
did not help them that those two teams are so awful this year, as we just
Okay,
discussed.
kind of an interesting question, and well, Titel is our bracket guru that's here. If you pull up the Gonzaga profile again, and they win out sans Kentucky, like they don't win at Rupp, but they win all the rest. Are they inside the bubble? Because it would be interesting. They would presumably be ranked in the teens or higher if they do that. Not that they would deserve it just based on how the rankings work. And, you know, the NABC advisory committee and all of that. I still think the committee would select them if they run the table, despite the West Coast being weak and despite none of that really being even NIT quality.
I would agree, and I think that Chad has it right there in red and green up top. As of today, the resume is not good. As of a couple months from now, the predictive loves them. I think that if they finish like 23-5 with the loss to Kentucky, and maybe 23-6 if they lose to St. Mary's in the WCC title game, I think this team is in.
Yeah, and
John,
those,
it'd be 25. They get to the magic 25 number. They'd be 25-6 in that.
Yeah.
interesting. They're two tough WCC games. The two toughest games in conference play are their last two games of the season at Sanford, at St. Mary's. They really need to basically not lose between now and the game in San Francisco, other than the Kentucky game.
Yeah.
And which is funny to say for Gonzaga that they can't suffer a strange Loyola Marymount loss this season or something like that.
They might not be good enough to avoid it. We're talking about the resume, and we should, but let's talk about who they actually are. We can talk predictive metrics, but the most important predictive metric up there is actually the net, which is a predictive metric, and that's only a 57. Right. And I think they might not be good enough and to avoid the bad loss this year.
Yeah, they are hosting Pepperdine in San Diego this week.
Yeah, the one time in the Mark Few era where they finished outside the bubble and seated below the first four, they went to the Sweet 16 and lost in overtime to a Final Four team. So
they should have been that team in the Final Four that year, I think.
Yeah.
But they give a resume like that this year. They might be going to the Sweet 16 of the NIT.
Let's jump over to one final conference here, the Atlantic 10, which actually had a pretty good week with a bunch of wins, which is what the conference needs if it wants to have enough weight to push somebody inside the bubble. Obviously, Griggs, I think that team that we're talking about to possibly push inside the bubble at this point may only be Dayton as a serious at-large contender.
I think there's a second one, but I think Joe's is also in that conversation if you want to pull the two of them up.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Joe's, and again, we talk about it every week. That loss at home to Commerce smells incredibly foul. But the win at Villanova is good. I think the home win over Princeton is good. I think they've looked good on the court. I think they've looked better than most of the teams in the league, that I think they can bloat out their record, and that the league isn't great, but it isn't awful either. It's not quite, it's still above the level of an under the radar league. So I think Joe's and Dayton, if anyone's going to play their way into it, it would be these two. Now, having said that, to do that, you're talking 15 conference wins or more. That because I mean, if you lose more than 3, I think that would knock out both these teams.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, Matt, especially on the St. Joe's team here, I just don't think this team is good enough to win all these road games against the clearly non-tournament team. You've got to win at UMass, at St. Bonaventure, at LaSalle, at Duquesne, at VCU.
Yes, you do.
You
are correct, Chad.
I see too many losses there on the Joe's West. I think Dayton has a little bit more room for error to lose 1 or 2 of those games.
Oh, I think they do. I think Dayton has more room for error. They're going to lose less often. I think Dayton wins the league comfortably. I think Joe's, they're one of those, I bet you we discuss them, but are probably in the teams 5 through 8 now. It's something where that range. I think I can see them ending up there, but not quite to where Dayton, I think, has a chance to even wear white in the first round.
Yeah, I just think
they play yeah.
Yeah, I just think Dayton has shown me that they can beat teams on the road St. Joe's showed me that they can beat Villanova, but anybody in the city of Philadelphia can beat Villanova. So does that
Yeah.
really count?
Yeah, and you're right. Like you're talking about, and looking at Joe's, Rhodey, St. Louis, they need both of it. Not even a question. Then they really need to win their next 6.
Mhm.
And I don't know if they win the next 6. Are you starting to believe a little bit?
I don't know, Joby, is there anybody even pay attention to it? Besides
How about
these teams
Duquesne,
are
9-3? The Damn Brats, the
the
Fighting Damn
the
Brats.
Bonnies have a decent net at 65 and a decent J&G at 80, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the question of if. The fact is, Joe's does have the nice win against Nova, and we all know that Nova's just weird this year against the Big Five. But come on, that's still a really good, nice win. But that leaves them. This conference just doesn't give you room for error if you aren't racking up major wins. Dayton, I agree with Matt though. Dayton, and you can see it in their net.
Pull up Dayton.
Dayton is different in that they have been performing, and what could help Dayton is St. John's winning that game.
I think that adds up tier 1. I think that adds up tier 1.
St. John's win that game. Cincinnati playing well enough in the Big 12, getting some scalps to be talked about at least on the bubble. SMU doing what we were talking about SMU doing. They need some help, but I think they can get it. And yes, are you really going to blame them for a loss to Houston and a road loss to Northwestern? No, it's if they lose at home to George Washington where you blame them. They can't do that.
Right. And Joe's, you also have the loss at College of Charleston. I get it. It's a good, decent Charleston team. It's not a bubble it's not an inside the bubble Charleston team. And they needed that win. One other team to go to outside of the Atlantic 10. We know that Dayton has a game at Davidson and hosted UMass, but James Madison still in the top 25, still undefeated, 13-0 here, with a big actually test by Sunbelt standards coming up at Louisiana. I know our good friend Rocco Mills is going to actually be at that game on Thursday at the Cajun Dome. But Titel, JMU, are you a believer yet, or is it one win and a bunch of nothing?
Strength of record number 5, Chad, says that it is not just nothing. 5-0 on the road, 2-0 neutral. I'm still not. I don't think it's a slam dunk that they sweep App State, but I am all in on this team. I don't think they're going to go undefeated because it's so hard to do, but I'm not seeing too many chances for them to stub their toe just because they are head and shoulders above everybody else on their schedule.
Yeah, and here's the App State team that is the second best team in the Sun Belt. But even them, I got them on the right here. They coming off of a somewhat questionable loss to UNC Asheville a week and a half ago or so. I just don't think that they're going to. There's nothing more they can do here, Matt, to improve the profile. They just have to avoid bad losses. And other than App State, anything's going to be a bad loss.
Yeah, the problem is, I think their main attraction's their gaudy record. Every loss, it feels like every loss is 2 to 3 seed line loss. That's where.
Okay, 2 to 3 seed line. I think they could lose as many as 3 and still end up inside the bubble.
2 plus the conference tournament, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And Griggs, I think both you and Matt are right because J&G has him as a 5 seed right now, undefeated. The key is undefeated. So you lose 2 to 3, you fall to that 8-9 game, fall to the 10 seed, then fall to the bubble, the Dayton. I think that's exactly how it is. I think 3 losses, especially with your Michigan State win, I think you're in.
When you live, I'm sorry, Joey, I cut you off. Well, when you live in the under the radar world that some of us live in, this is just one of the unfortunate pieces of it. But it is the reality, and the standard is the same. And it isn't, well, why doesn't Arizona have to run the table, or why doesn't Northwestern? Well, if James Madison loses 3 losses, you're talking about losing 3 games to teams that are nowhere near the NIT. And simple as that.
And I'll throw you still see the TBA up there on James Madison's schedule. That is a Mid-American Conference team. Another week or so, we may find out actually which team they're playing, but it's not going to do anything to. It's going to be a home game. It's not going to do anything to move the needle.
The Mid-America, it's sort of letting them down a little bit this year. That normally the top of that conference is so, really strong, at least under the radar standards. But a lot of the teams that we thought would be really good out of that league, not coming to fruition. And if you want to hear more about that, Chad, what can people do?
If you want to hear more about that, you could not watch this podcast now. You can come back tomorrow. Probably tomorrow early evening. We will have our Under the Radar podcast posted. We are going to be recording that tomorrow early evening. Later on in the evening tomorrow, we're going to be doing our first bracket rundown of the show of the season. But I do want to move to final thoughts now that we've gone through all the teams. So, Titel, let me let you start things off here.
I'm going to give a shout out to Max Asmus. I was not sure how he was going to adjust when moving from the Summit League at Oral Roberts to the Big 12 in Austin, but seems to be going just fine. He's averaging 17 points a game, just past JJ Redick on New Year's Day, 2,784 career points. He's probably got at least 20 games left in his career, 18 regular season, 1 or more in the Big 12 tourney, 1 or more in the postseason. Even if his scoring drops off from 17 a game, he's well on pace to become the 12th player ever with 3,000 career points. And if he heats up or he gets to play several postseason games, keeping in mind in his 4 NCAA tourney games in his career, he's averaging 23 points a game. He's got a legit shot to become the 6th player ever with 3,200 points.
Oh, I don't know. I was looking at his numbers that day. I don't know if 3,200 be tough, but I'm thinking top 10 of all time. If he gets past Keidron Clark, who right now 3,058 is number 10. That's realistic, I think, at least, which is impressive. Although he got 6 seasons, didn't he? Asmus.
At least.
At least 6 seasons, maybe about 20 seasons. Seems like he's been out there forever. Matt.
So I know we had a couple last week. We had to give a rest in peace, and I got to be the guy this week because it's close to home with Joey Meyer passing away, the former DePaul coach who took over for his dad, was his dad's top recruiter, I think was a big influence on them starting the run in the late 70s up till the early 90s. DePaul was a legit top 25 program. I know it's impossible probably to believe now, but one time, yeah, they were a legit top 25 program, made some NCAA tournament runs, and then it fell off as feud with the public league in Chicago after they tightened admissions, and that just torpedoed the program, and I don't think they've ever fully recovered there. But it's, yeah, because I said he did a great job first as his dad's assistant and then as the head guy. And then DePaul basketball, if there's any memory of them being good, it's because of the Meyer family.
One of these days, we're going to talk about DePaul as a good tournament team, but a good basketball team, but it might not be this decade.
Yeah.
Joby.
Yeah, I always go back into the numbers. And Chad, would you mind pulling up 2 profiles for me real quick? Our Memphis Tigers and our Alabama Crimson Tide. And
sure thing.
So, and both of these are tournament teams right now. But Alabama 8-5, not really any great win out there, but it's a good team. The losses are impressive, etc. But then I'd like someone to explain to me how this 8-5 team has a net of 5. I just don't understand it. Meanwhile, look at what Memphis has done. They beat Clemson, who only has 1 loss, I mind you, at A&M.
One at A&M, yeah.
VCU at VCU. Michigan, we know, but Arkansas, Michigan, Missouri have been disappointed, but they're still decent. The only loss is Villanova, and they're not a group of 5 teams, so you're allowed to lose to Villanova, and our Big 5 team, and the undefeated Ole Miss Rebels. Wait a minute, they're 40th? This is where I think there's something off here. Yeah,
I can kind of explain a little bit here, Joby, because I highlight here at Alabama the predictive metrics and the adjusted offense and defense. This team, the predictives love this team, and that's why the net loves this team.
Why. And the net tries to correlate, not always, but is probably closely because of efficiency. And Alabama is a perfect example of it. Is Ken Palm is probably your best guess on it, though they do a little bit of the 1-loss record, though it didn't impact Alabama as much this year. But this is where the reason I point these 2 teams out is because for all the viewers out there who try to seed teams based on the net, that's not how you do it. That's not how Titel does it. That's not how when I try to have the J&G do. It's not how you do it. Memphis is not a 10 seed. They're a top 4 seed.
Joby,
Alabama's not a 2 seed. They're a 10 seed probably. And so to all the folks out there, don't get caught up in lists. take a profile, look at a profile, and then that's how you come to your conclusion. That's what the best like Titel do, and that's my public service announcement for the day.
I just will throw this out there. You look at Alabama's losses; they're all single-digit losses to great teams. Their wins are all blowouts. You look at Memphis; one of their losses was 3 points. The other loss was by what 16. And then you look at some of their wins. You only beat Vanderbilt by 2 at home. You only beat Austin P by 11 at home. There is, and then your good wins even overtime.
Are you going to really
VCU.
argue that Memphis is not a protected seed?
No,
right
no.
now?
I think based on resume, I like Memphis's resume better than Alabama. What I'm saying is,
By a lot.
I understand what
Mhm.
a little bit why the predictors lug this team so
Well,
much
my
better.
point is some people don't only look at lists and only go by certain lists and say, oh, this team X must be seeded higher than team Y. And that is not the correct way. If you were doing a bracket, that's not how you do a bracket.
That's
That's absolutely
I
how
use
I do
that
my
as an
bracket.
example.
I don't look at things like road record or anything like that.
Greg, you want to finish the show off? I'll pull this back down.
Real quick, the Atlantic 10, one of the things is that it just, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to speculate why, they didn't give at least the top of the league itself a whole lot of chances at notable wins. St. Joe's did, but Dayton really didn't get those opportunities. When we looked at the Mountain West earlier, we kind of saw a little bit of the same thing. Florida Atlantic certainly did, but I want to see some sort of scheduling agreement between the 4 multi-bid leagues that aren't the Big East. That's the West Coast, the American, the Atlantic 10, and the Mountain West, to where you have a somewhat of a bracket buster type format where late in the year, everybody plays one home game and one road game against someone from one of those other conferences that is on their level. And how great would it be to see Joe's in Dayton going up against Nevada or Gonzaga or somebody like that late in the year?
I like how Gonzaga has now been thrown out of the elite teams down into the Mountain West caliber teams because
well, they're in the West Coast. They probably
But-
wouldn't participate in
No.
something like that.
I don't think that they think they've fallen that far quite yet. But on that note, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. As we mentioned a couple times earlier, we'll be back tomorrow night with a couple more podcasts under the radar and a bracket rundown. But for now, on behalf of David Griggs, Matt Sikowski, John Titel, and Joby Forsett, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again real soon.